Because that's all it was anyway.
Thank you.
It's not a discussion point. Is that okay?
Yeah.
Anybody else have objections?
Frank will say it. Same thing or
Well, I mean, we came out, we
Voting on anything.
Good evening. Good evening and welcome to the Palm Beach Town Council work session. Today, Wednesday, April 3rd, 2019. Meeting is called to order. Roll call of the members is Dallas Lehman cannot make it tonight. Is there a motion to approve the agenda?
Yes, okay, sorry.
Say second. Mr. Alger.
Aye.
Mr. I.
Aye.
Mr. Serby. Ms. Robertson. Ms. Shea.
Aye.
The chair votes aye. Council updates. Mr. Alger. Mr. I. Mr. Serby.
We got the banners out this last week.
Thank you.
The banners got put up last week on Colonial Avenue, plus, and Public Works did a pretty good job, they got them up pretty quick. The other thing is, it's an automatic, at least in my opinion, it's very prevalent to see the change on Colonial Avenue with some of the cleanup of just, even if it's just the right of way. And I do understand we have some sore feelings on people who didn't understand the sign ordinance, but it's something we're going to be addressing. But it looks better already, just with that simple bit of work.
Nothing at this time.
Ron?
Two things. One is that there is work being done about amending or revising the food truck ordinance, and that at the discussion of the planning commission sort of separated into two different ways of dealing with it. One is that the town code can be amended by town council that talks about the vendor program on the boardwalk. So we can expand the area of what's right now very specific to the boardwalk to other town-owned property as well. That way we can start to allow that in other places happen. But we can't change the private sector issues on private property until we write a code, zoning code ordinance. So that will happen through the planning commission. So we're gonna kind of tackle this in two ways. One is a sort of quicker step where town council can amend the town code to allow it a little bit more flexibility in this. But in the meantime, the planning commission will be writing the ordinance to address the private property concerns that are out there. So that's the first thing. The second thing is I met with the school board and Gladys and Quinn last week, and Vicki was there, about the 3 entities of money that got transferred back from the school to the town coffers to organize and make sure we understood those figures, make sure those figures were correct and all of that. And I will say I feel confident that all 3 figures are now verified, so that's good. So we'll be discussing that in the future also. But there are other things that came out of the meeting that I think are important for citizens and the public to know. So I'm hoping we'll discuss the rest of those details maybe at the next meeting. And where there was just some misinformation out there, which is why I was confused and asked for the meeting to begin with. So anyway, now that we have all that figured out, I think we have a good place to present that, but there's a lot on the agenda tonight, and the budget is a big one, so I'm not trying to bog down this agenda with that issue. That's it.
Thank you very much. I have nothing at this time, so we'll move into presentations. If we could have Ms. Gomez do the presentation.
Good evening, council. Before we get into, if you notice, I should say before we start the presentation, you have 2 different packets in front of you. the long ones, easier to read, hopefully for your pleasure. One's expenditures, one's revenue. So as we talk about this, this is really the budget in its, the Wholesome General Fund budget for you to take home and peruse as a budget presentation goes. Tonight's to identify the budget itself and to submit it to you and go over some of the highlights and the bottom line at the high level. So if you have any questions over the next 2 to 4 weeks, please see me and Mrs. Gomez so we can answer them offline and go through the details in conversation format. Onto that, I'll take you to the PowerPoint, which is a lot more user-friendly. On the agenda, we'll go over highlights, and then we'll look at revenues, expenditures, and then followed up with a preliminary look at water, and any questions and comments that you might have on that. So, pending any questions, I'll go ahead and move into the highlights. The first bullet that you see here, I'm actually very excited about, because if we remember back to last year, it was the first chance for Mrs. Gomez and myself to get a hold of the budget, and we had to make some serious changes in terms of how things were reported for the upcoming year, and we knew that previous projections of prior years were off. So we were really, I don't want to use the term flying blind, but it was a trial year. We knew we had to streamline FY19 just to make sure that we identified everything. And right now, what I'm excited about is that where we're at in fiscal year 19 is exactly where we projected we would be. So we're following along those lines, and that's a good sign. And that leads me to believe that what you have in front of you for FY19, I have a lot of confidence in. We were able to project with that type of variance the previous year, so this year, and every year moving forward is going to get that much better. So we're excited about that at the staff level. What you're also going to see is you're going to see a slight increase in revenues. Most of that is from the anticipated real estate assessments. They went up not a lot, but a little. So when you see a bump in revenues from last year to this year, the lion's share of that will be associated with real estate assessments. We were also excited after we spent countless hours and great energies with the department heads to be able to return to some historical staffing levels. If you remember last year, we had to make some significant and hard, tough decisions around staffing. We had a hiring freeze, there was some attrition, and we just had to be very diligent with how the monies were spent. Because of that, we were able to take a look down at the individual departments and identify that in this year's budget, we've actually been able to get the staff members, in particular with the police department and with Public Works, to where we can add some more employees to go after the ultimate goal, which is to get all the goals of council done. So we're able to take people and put those against those efforts. What I'd also like to point out is this is kind of a conservative revenue estimate, and that's the responsible piece on our part. I've beat the drum about the poor weather last year. I think it was 37 weekends that were rained out, over twice the amount of annual rain, the most rain this region has seen in over half a century. And that affected revenues, as it would be expected to. I don't expect Mother Nature to do that to us again this year, but what I have to do is to base our numbers in this budget off of what we experienced last year. But I'd kind of like to caveat that. Even though with that poor weather, we were able to hit the revenues that we projected, not knowing that we were going to have poor weather. And I think that speaks a lot to our marketing campaign, and it speaks a lot to the volunteers that have gone out and done these events across town and get activity regardless of weather happening during our tourist season and off season too. So I think that shows a community effort to offset, no matter what weather we have, that we were able to pull that off. I think that speaks volumes. And then the last bullet indicates that in FY19 we experienced an increase in debt, particularly through the Virginia 911 agreement that we have. We do not anticipate FY20 debt increasing again. We think we kind of experienced that increase in 19, and now that we're kind of in a stagnation of debt, and that will remain there. for multiple years, but we've looked long and hard to see if there was anything upcoming that we were unaware of and haven't found it. So we feel like we've matured in our debt limit. Pending your questions, I'll move on to revenues. To revenues, please. All right, to council, this is the bottom line, what we're seeing. Our budget in FY19 was $7,098,715. We've experienced roughly $193,000 increase projected in FY20. That goes with three increases that contribute significantly to the revenues are parking, streets, real estate assessments, and law enforcement assistance. And what I did here, so when you go back and review the numbers in granularity, the note is that only parking and real estate assessment increases are undesignated. So the streets, while it's fantastic that we got an increase in that, as well as the law enforcement assistance, that's already been, allocated to a specific effort. So there's no moving of monies, or there's nothing that we as a staff can do. They're dedicated for a certain purpose, but with the real estate assessments and the parking, we do have some numbers in. Any questions around that bottom line number? Moving on to expenditures. Expenditures, balanced budget revenues must equal expenditures, and the top two numbers from FY19 and FY20 show that it's the same number you saw on the previous page with the same increases. It was a lot of work, but a lot of positivity came out of going with the departments, going line by line, and understanding where our monies are best spent, where we could increase, where we need to increase, have to increase, and where we had opportunities to decrease. And with that, we were able to add additional staff to get us back up to historical staffing efforts, which is critically important. Case in point with the police department, they were at very, very low numbers. It was hard to make the shifts work. And now, with this budget, we feel very confident that we're going to have a very well-staffed police force that's going to be able to go out there and do the job that we ask them to do. Any questions? I will move on to water and sewer. As I indicated in a previous communication, that we're still trying to go through the exact details of the water and sewer and separate than the general fund. But we wanted to go ahead and preliminary address it because what we're seeing is the necessity for an increase in water and sewer rates. And what we've done here is we've provided the current water and sewer rates above, and then of course we get billed monthly times 3, and that's what the Colonial Beach citizen pays today. And right now, our anticipated and our preliminary findings are that the water rate is probably going to hover around 35 and the sewer rate 66. Now, what does that really mean? That means an increase of about $23 a month is what we're currently looking at for our water rates. And that's why we wanted to bring that up today, so when we have that conversation at the next council meeting, when we get into the granularity, because this increase in water rates is actually what we recommended last year, but we did not implement. But those numbers should look semi-familiar. And again, we want to go back and double check the math and make sure that we've got everything accounted for when we come to you with the exact rates.
Ava.
No, it's 9:35.
No, in addition.
Right, it's 9:35 now. Oh, sorry. That's mine. Sorry. 2:35.
It'll go up around $72, $73 a quarter.
Right.
72 cents.
Okay.
About $72, $73 a quarter.
276. Oh, okay.
The reason we really want to point that up right now is that that's what we're going to be looking at to cover what's budgeted right now. In the budget, we're going to be looking at the water and sewer.
We need to have that extra 10% contingency, right?
got some contingencies
That's
in
part.
there. So it's just,
That's a required by, that's why it's one.
it's cranked in, but to keep that, we just didn't want everybody looking at this line not realizing this big increase on the water and sewer was going to be necessary.
Think of this as a pre-read to a following presentation that we can present to you the contingency in all the mentioned points.
Again, as Quinn said, we're not it's not validated yet, we're still cranking through the actual cost and budget items.
It's a shame that, I don't think there's any legality to it, positive for us anyway, that we couldn't, if we were going to implement this kind of increase, which is not too burdensome on most of us, but it is burdensome on some people, especially with fixed income. That we couldn't be resourced in a tax deductible way, in other words, do real estate tax or personal property tax, and I know that these two are totally separate, completely separate from everything else, but I know we can't raise one and send monies over to that.
Our hands
It's
are
all
tied
separate.
with the revenue.
So it would be nice if people at least had an opportunity to deduct some of the second costs.
Agreed, especially for
Everybody
the,
in here, everybody sitting here has to do that, so.
especially for the fixed income folks. But I think once we can break out next meeting and show how these calculations came with the gallons per usage, and I think, and Mr. Murphy can speak to it as well, I do think that there's a piece of that calculation that deals with, is there a piece of that calculation that deals with people on fixed income and lesser needs? Seniors? There's a senior.
That's cranked into the overall.
Yeah,
Yeah, and we also, those who can't pay, take care of,
right.
I think it's 17.
17, and
But
that's
that
actually.
history is cranked into the budget, which in turn is put out there.
So we as a town, we do have relief mechanisms in place. It's just the nature of sewer and water, there's less of a mechanism. But, for example, with real estate, as you mentioned, 17 Colonial Beaches take advantage of that. So we're doing what we can every chance we can. Picking your questions, really just any further guidance from council, the mayor, and any alibis moving forward. And that concludes the formal portion.
Yeah, does anybody have questions? So I anticipate that each council member will come and meet with the two of you at some point in time, just with any questions that they may have.
I just remind everybody
You've got
that
it.
next Friday I will start to my vacation. So
Yeah.
I would be flexible with Thursday, but I prefer to be Monday, Tuesday, or Wednesday.
Okay.
Starting
So-
fresh, morning.
Right. So give everybody a chance to pour over these numbers, these spreadsheets, and then if they develop questions, come and sit down with the two of you.
Thanks, I think it's the second one, Susan.
So thank you, I think we're on the right track, and this is, I appreciate two things. One, the professionalism of builders, two, the size of the paper. You can actually see it, unlike the past. It's good to see. Any questions from the rest of the council? Okay, so we'll move to unfinished business. There's nothing there, we'll go to new business. Resolution 2019 appoints Ryan Candy to the Colonial Beach Tourism Advisory Council.
Is he here? I know there was some mention that he wasn't
He
going
said he probably was going to be late.
No, ma'am, I just got a text from him. He's still in Stafford County. The chances of him making it back in town, he did have the text, have the proof. He said he would enjoy reaching out and talking to each and every council member individually, via phone or in person, to be able to make the appointments and kind of go over your goals and objectives for him to help us execute.
If you don't mind, please, could you just give a really brief synopsis of who he is and where he goes? Thank you, Ms. Clements.
Mr. Gandy is a new resident to Colonial Beach. He lives on Spotswood Lane. He's currently the King George Economic Advisor and also Tourism Advisor to King George. He's held multiple similar roles in Northern Virginia. Off memory, I believe Dumfries comes to mind, maybe Manassas Park, but generally located in Virginia, Northern Virginia. He's been at this quite some time, I'd say probably a decade. I know that we've had some prominent NGO persons meet with him. I believe Mr. Nelson has had the opportunity to meet with him and discuss goals. And we've had him in for 1 or 2 meetings. So, and most recently submitted his application to the Tourism Council, which unanimously got approved, which is why it's in front of us the council tonight. I'm excited for 2 reasons, because his background affords him the ability to do what we ask him to do. First and foremost, I believe he's qualified, and he's got some regional knowledge because he's doing it for King George. And that doesn't fall in our laps very often. And he's also he resides in Colonial Beach. So that's the trifecta of goodness. On top of that, he's willing to do this on a voluntary basis right now, which, as you saw the budget, I'm extremely excited about. And we would like to see upcoming budgets make this a paid position. That's our goal. Our goal is to move it in that direction. But this is a good segue to that. This is almost the bridge to get us to the other side of the ravine on that. I think it's been very obvious to the public and to the staff that one of our primary drivers from council is to improve the economics of Colonial Beach, and we're a tourist town. And now we're bringing in an additional asset, and it's going to give us more activity out of that. So I'm more than welcome to speak at further length about him, but we're happy to have him.
Before the meeting, I did have a phone conversation with him a while back. Any questions from you? So do we want to vote on this tonight? Again? So, yeah, resolution 20-19 points is rank Ryan Gandy to the Colonial Beach Tourism Advisory Council. Is a motion. Second.
Second.
Mr. Alvin.
Aye.
Mr. Dye.
Aye.
Mr. Serby.
Aye.
Mr. Anderson.
Aye.
Ms. Shea.
Aye.
And the chair votes aye. Congratulations, Mr. Gandy. Welcome to Colonial Beach. Look forward to using your resources and building a good partnership. Next on the agenda is initial review of the 2020 capital improvement plan submitted by the Planning Commission. That's tab C on the book. I'll turn this over to the Vice Mayor.
The Planning Commission has been working on revamping the capital improvement plan, or at least even beginning this existence 3 or 4 years ago maybe. And the year prior, we said was like flatline funding, and they said no capital projects would get funded. All of that, we found out that that was wrong, because of course this project's still happening anyway. They went ahead and passed this preliminarily, but that was, they were trying to get ahead of our budget season, but then we had our priority meeting on MLK Day. And so after Planning Commission had passed the capital improvement plan that you hear in front of us, which identifies tons of needs, I mean, you look at this thing, it's got everything in it. I did tell them to expect me to redline it somewhat at the council level to include the things that we had prioritized in that meeting. So this is sort of the draft from the Planning Commission. It is now at the council level where we can make adjustments to it. And I just want it to become a document that is really utilized and not just passed and not looked at again. And so I think in order for it to become a living document that has some grit to it and some strength, it needs to align with what we have agreed upon and talked about already. So the Planning Commission knows this. I'm not taking their good work and then without that, but they were trying to get ahead, and they've been trying to be ahead of the budget process, which is their job to do that, and so, but I would like it to align more to what we have prioritized. And do consider all of these things as needs when you're looking at the budget lines, that these are all in our comprehensive plan, that these are all things that cost real money, and that they are not in our operating budget. So, but we can look for an edited version of this at the next round. Just wanted to go ahead and get it on our agenda, and at least everybody have a copy of the document.
In going through the public works budgets, we've identified various items that really should be under CIP or capital expenditure separate than the day-to-day operating budgets. So we may, in order to parallel some of the other departments in this, we may end up having to identify some additional items that will flush out through this budget process.
Good, excellent.
Because it just, you know, we shouldn't be budgeting them in the operating
Right.
annual budget. It should be something that we do the whole.
Well, and it folds into then having a capital budget that you are replenishing in order to accomplish capital items, and
Yep.
like it all goes into a process that
Yeah.
then makes sense, instead of trying to pull those funds from operating revenue.
But, you know, but again, also having the same types of items from different departments or a school or the town or whatever, all paralleling in the CIP as compared to having some in the operating budget, some in the CIP. We need to kind of make sure that we really scrutinize and get them in the right places so that we're not evaluating one division's needs and the others are already getting covered in a budget line item or something. You know,
Right.
That's what we've been trying to do.
And at the top, that very first section above part 1 is just sort of a down and dirty of what makes a CIP item. So if you're not sure, it sort of explains the document. So it's, you know, it's based on previous year's needs, it's based on goal set in the comp plan, input from the department heads. Now, sometimes they've gotten really good input from departments, and sometimes they don't get as much input. So we want to encourage the departments to communicate with our planning commission so that they can put your needs in here. Part 1 are things that are getting done. Either they have been completed or they're currently getting completed. And then part 2 was things that they thought actually might get funded. And so they're the top priority because they think there may be funding, or at least there's a lot of interest to try to fund them. And then part 3 were items that were specifically segmented out to sale probably. They're sort of from the school list, but then the school gave the presentation of their capital needs. So when I'm saying the departments need to talk to the planning commission, like it's kind of what I'm talking about. The school needs to talk to the planning commission so that their items line up with these items. And then the last one was, this is Maureen, she's chair, and she really wanted to show you all of the other things that also should be considered. And it's a little overwhelming to me, but they're on there. And some of those things we may find funding for and will move to part 1, or have been prioritized by us higher than maybe they were thought to be before, and will move to part 1. And some of them are done, and some of them, there it is. So, like I said, I'm gonna edit it a little bit, and
More than
we'll all,
written necessarily.
right. And if there's more department feedback, this can be a process. Departments can still come and let us know, so.
This is also the comprehensive plan, so it's the big picture items.
Yeah, these
Not
are
so much
the big deal.
CIP.
Yeah, don't ask me for one car. It's not what we're talking about. We're talking about bigger stuff. You know, $50,000 minimum criteria for physical aspects. Yeah, well, that's a nice car, yeah. Okay. So that's all I had to say. I just wanted it to be in your packet and people to be aware of it.
Still streamlined, whenever it's ready for us to.
I can make edits by our next meeting if you want. I have notes
Can
already.
you give them to us before the meeting?
Yeah, that's fine.
Just so, I mean, I'd kind of like to just keep working on a regular basis so that there's, everybody's kind of on the same page as we discuss it in meetings, outside of meetings, or whatever.
I think it's good to keep it in mind too as you're looking at these line items. Excellent. All right.
Thank you. Any questions? We'll move on to status items. We'll start with the first one, which is unsafe pier zones around town.
They expected, we went out to solicited for 3 bids. I know we've gotten one back. We anticipate the end being this Friday. So we'll give them notice to proceed as soon as we get the lowest bidder after that.
What is that a bid for?
I'm sorry?
What is that a bid for?
To,
It's actually getting separate for all 3.
Removal of 2 piers and fixing the town pier.
Sawgrass First Street, 50.
Yeah, but they're each one separate.
right.
They're separated in different ones.
And we've only had one bidder for all 3.
Correct.
Okay.
Well, that's the one you had for some time. So we haven't got one.
Just came back and redid it.
Okay.
I know one person came to the town hall asking me.
Okay.
Can I ask a question?
Mhm.
When the bid goes out, are there specs, not necessarily for the removal, but for the, I know nothing, so that's why I'm asking. That is like a certain, I don't know, wood gets used, because I know you can't just.
Yeah, so you could compare apples to apples.
Yeah.
There are specifications that went out.
Okay.
The first bid was on.
Yeah.
The first bid was, almost unsolicited.
Yeah.
They wrote the scope. And the problem was, is we had to understand what that was, in order to get any additional apples to apples prices.
Right.
So we got,
Because I know that, I mean, there's different wood types, and there's different,
well, you got piling there, you got
Yeah,
lots of
yeah.
different.
yeah, and thickness of wood, whatever it is, I don't know, but, okay, so there are specs too. Thank you.
Any questions? Sale of town-owned property. Next public hearing is scheduled for April 17th, our next meeting. I'll have some conversations with Vice Mayor and some other folks.
I had a couple of issues.
Okay. We'll get this
Um,
discussion.
I saw the vice mayor's email. I agree on the backup side. But just because we're putting something on doesn't mean we're going to sell it. My thoughts were on the properties adjacent to the bank building, that we ought to have the ability or the versatility to accept a price or bid or an offer on the entire chunk of town property, which could include, because the chamber building and the school board property and the bank building, because that may be that somebody comes in and wants to do something where we need one or the other building. The chamber building is something that we moved out of and discarded, and the chamber's been using it ever since. And I'm not saying that we're just trying to keep on the street, but I think we've got to use the best opportunities to eliminate some liabilities, and that building is a liability, no, that's for sure. And I know the school board had made some rumblings about doing something new, possibly up on the new campus or something simple.
Yeah, that's not happening. There's no place to put it.
But again, we're also talking about a town center eventually, Again, I think that we don't necessarily have to, just because we're putting something on this RFP to get, on the resolution saying that we are willing to look at potentially selling it, we're not agreeing to sell it.
That's right.
And so I think that we should leave it open and not narrow it down too much. And again, I think, some of you know, I thought we should add the parking lot on the corner, at the end of the boardwalk on the corner of Hawthorne and,
It's on there.
so, that was
I agree with Steve. I mean, I think if somebody, a well-known developer has a good vision, wants to come in and buy a block and develop it, keep the historical features as much as possible and into a hotel or something like that, that will provide, not only jobs, but of course income and revenue streams to the town. I think that's a winner because obviously, we negotiate then to build out a municipal center or something like that, which would then host area in every week.
And something, the school board building itself, that's a building that could be built. It's a one-story building, instead of there. So that's something that, as a historic building, could be developed. Unfortunately, the possibility is too far gone to do it.
Right.
I'm not saying sell it and get rid of it, torn down. Unfortunately, the old fisheries building, which is your chambers, I don't know if there's much of that there, but, I just think it would be good to leave our options a little more open than narrow.
I'm with you, but I'm concerned that my original point was that we sent out, we met in that meeting, we identified the properties that were town-owned, that we agreed in that discussion to sell. I highlighted them in green and sent them to everybody, and those are not the parcels listed in this public hearing. In Wilder Avenue, not a single parcel is listed in this public hearing, not one. And did we identify that parking lot as one of
I
them?
wasn't there.
I know that there was already, that Wilder Avenue parking lot had already been identified and has already been appraised.
It's not going to the public hearing.
It's gotta be.
Okay, but I don't know, do we already have a public hearing on that property years ago?
No, not ever.
Okay.
That's a
But
little confusing, that's what.
Yeah, so to me,
Yeah.
there were very clear lots then that were listed out, and
Why weren't all the lots that we spent money to have appraised put on there? And,
I don't know why the lots that were not in the exact list that I sent are not included in the public hearing. That's my concern. Why is those not the exact? Some of them, but some aren't. Like, who said, let's alter this list and pick some and not
We
pick
finally
some?
came to was we were gonna do everything
everything,
at the public hearing.
yes.
So it shouldn't matter what list they're on, it shouldn't be.
That's right, because Jim Pullman
Well-
said the
I
language
thought
would
Jim
be
said
that.
we needed to.
You have to have parcel numbers, and Allison didn't have parcel numbers for Abby J.
That was the
But she had parcel numbers for the ones on the list that I
That's
sent.
right, 'cause it's our refusal, right to refuse to sell it. So,
I know Mr. Lehman was working with Ms. Fincham, and I got with Ms. Fincham as well. I think the original intent, or at least the way staff understood the original intent from MLK Day, is everything in that geographic area of interest we wanted to list. And obviously that effort fell short. But since then, the council has discussed the specific properties versus everything in terms of what the lawyer indicated, that if you do it that way, then you only have one public hearing. So I think I'm looking for guidance. Will we issue, will we stay just
What's our
a
time?
very specific direction?
It's in the
It's in
paper
the
now.
paper.
So we can move forward with these and then have another public hearing in May for the rest of the lots.
Right, my concern is that if we're not smart about this, if we're not intentional about this, then one, the wrong things are getting advertised to the public.
Yeah.
And number two, that's going to create an issue at public hearing when people come up and say, how come lot 15 is advertised to the public as for sale when we don't own lot 15 because the beach shop owns
So
it?
how do we make sure that it's seamless when we, like we did in the last meeting, we feel like we're directing, but we're not, are we hand delivering the actual addresses and the lots to the planning and zoning for?
I mean, I can't hand deliver it any clearer than the legal description and the tax ID number.
And and those aren't on that.
No, like, some are, most aren't.
Can you find out why that happened? Kind of like to know myself.
Yes, I'll find out.
And
In the meantime,
But for council's intent, presumably, what I'm hearing, or what I'm understanding is that we want to, the ones that are missing need to be advertised for that.
I think my intent and possibly the rest of council's intent is a little bit different. That's okay, because everybody can have a different opinion about this. But to me, the Wilder Avenue parking lots, especially the ones recommended by the planning commission, which are the ones that abut the boardwalk, because I don't agree with selling the whole parking lot, but the ones that are literally on the boardwalk, that the planning commission has already said, please God, sell those things. Like, that should be, they said it. Amen, right? Those should be listed. The old school property that is for sale by Coldwell Banker and being advertised. Why don't we just go ahead and hold the public hearing on that thing? That way if we get an offer, it's easy for a buyer. So those are the things that were on this list.
I think everything.
Well,
Well, we can't do it.
everything is the library, this building, that parking lot, the rest is
Banker
the
property, that's been through public hearing. Because we couldn't have put up for sale without going through public hearing. It's had signage on it.
You have listed it, you have a listing contract, but I don't know that it's gone through.
The old
Old high school.
If or no.
No, that was never under, the listing.
No, because we,
The water tower field was under listing.
Okay, so Water Tower Field is under a listing agreement, and that went through a public hearing, correct?
not for this,
No.
not this kind of public
I
hearing.
don't remember exactly.
No, we conducted no public hearings.
Well, I know
We
that-
had listing agreements, where they were marketing the properties, but we had not received an offer, so therefore we didn't have a.
Okay.
That was the thing, I think we were going.
Yeah, the
Yes.
mentality is shifting.
Yeah, now what we're trying to do is get, the cart in line with the horse,
Right.
whereas we were going backwards before.
You're saying we're gonna wait until an offer comes, then we're gonna hold a public hearing, which holds
See
the
if we-
offer up,
Yeah,
which is,
exactly,
you
which has
know,
been our problem.
this has been a problem. So we're like, let's do the public hearings first, and when we get an offer, we don't have to do that part. So I'm just again gonna advocate for the exact list that I had sent out, because it's very simple and easy this way. Allison doesn't have to be burdened with finding the tax map numbers to all of the other things like the library and this building that we also own, and the things that we didn't prioritize.
Specific then on unused and what we believe needs to be on that list down
Right.
Can I suggest that?
Right, which is why the backup wasn't on
But
there.
even if it's stuff that's not intended, that's unused, that's, in case we get an offer, I mean, I would say that should be.
Agreed. Right now, we've got a solicited paper, we've got a advertisement for a public hearing out there. Is there anything on the current list that we don't want to sell that's being advertised?
The bathroom.
The bathroom. Can we eliminate that?
Yeah,
Amend that? My point is, to follow what you were saying, Mr. Mayor, is that we can go ahead and do the public hearing, and then do another one after we get this list clarified.
right, so the night of the public hearing, we will amend it from the current advertisement to exclude the bathrooms, which is parcel 18. We should also amend it to exclude parcel 15, which the town of Queen Beach does not own, and is listed in the public hearing.
I like selling other people's property. It's a good.
Okay, and then we should finalize the list.
Right, and then I can create a second list that has the ones that we missed from the first one. We can do this again to supplement that one. That's fine. Some of the most important things that I want to sell aren't on this list, and it's just frustrating to me.
So let's advertise, just do another public hearing.
But let's take the time to get the list correct before we just go ahead and do it.
Thank you. I would love to
The
do
regular
it,
meeting,
please. We'll send it out again.
unless we want a special.
Can we have Ms. Schick with that?
We'll do a second one in May with this rest of it.
It's not
Okay.
gonna-
Fine.
That gives us time to advertise.
They're not gonna do it.
And it gives time to go through some questions about it.
Well, let's get everybody's input.
Because like the Kroger's property, we know what's going to happen with that property over there, and that whole block could be developed into something like we used to have when I was a kid here.
I mean, that's private property, and I can't,
No, but I'm just
on
saying,
council, vote to sell that, but I I think, right, there are gonna be a lot of changes that are gonna happen by doing this, and I'm excited about those changes. I just wanna make sure we're very intentional about it, because I think this, like, put it all on the table and see what happens is gonna give us a bunch of marbles that don't match, and I'm concerned about that. I just wanna make sure we're just a little bit more intentional.
How can we get a list of items that are exclusive of the ones that are on public hearing, that are advertised now?
I can send that to you right after this meeting.
Okay, so that we can make sure everybody's looking at the same list. We can do the same thing we did this week on any items or any opinions about it.
Right, so we'll move forward with the public hearing as advertised, amend it with the things that should get out. And then we'll do a second one that has the rest of the other things that were, and the main thing is because these are slam dunks, guys, these are the ones that we all said, like, these need to have it, so. I wanna get the easy stuff.
Thank you for checking.
Alright, thank you.
No, thank you, that's serious. RFP and bids,
The RFP and bids, the way I understood it, refers to the Klotz Demolition and Real Estate Broker RFP that was put out. Mr. Murphy can discuss the Klotz Demolition, but since I'm already talking, I can go ahead and bring up, we originally submitted an RFP about a month and a half ago for real estate representation about the topic that you just discussed. Since then, I believe Rama has been able to go to a DHCD seminar, and I think she's got a very innovative and unique approach. It might completely negate the need for an RFP, but I would be remiss if I tried to explain that process. I wasn't there. But she was able to brief me about it. I'm excited. It seems like a great methodology to get after this, and I don't want to put you on the spot, Robin, but if you want to.
Yeah, so the DHCD meeting was, I briefly spoke about it last time, was outstanding, and like, I think, Pat, you're coming with me to the next one.
Try.
You're gonna try to go with me? You're gonna do it. Cause you're gonna drive, because I'm gonna be super pregnant.
You gotta stop it and rest.
It's in May 16th. Yeah. Well, somebody, if Pat can't, somebody else should also come. But the way, I don't know that. Oh, no, this is like a sector of the DHCD. Oh, good.
I mean, seriously.
Oh, okay.
Positive.
I can't tell if that's a good thing or
Yeah,
not.
great.
It took a little while to warm up to each other.
Good. Well, they seem to be helpful, and so what they are doing is growing small-scale developers. That's what their initiative is. And so the way that they want municipalities to reach these small-scale developers and capitalize on them is by, instead of doing your regular listing with a real estate agent, is to do a bid process where you take the piece of property you want to sell, like the bank was a good example. You put all the information that you have about the bank together in a package, and you send it out to bid, and you say, we want bids back that explain what you would purchase the building for, what you're gonna do for it in the long term, how it's gonna look, and we want a pro forma as to what justifies what your bid price is to buy it from us. And so it's not to get the most money out of every piece of property. It's about getting the most development out of that property. And so it's also the only way that I think the town can direct the kind of development we want to see, instead of it just being sold and then we have no control over it.
We don't have, just a quick question, if we put something out and we get proposals back, we can scrap it all.
Correct, we, just like the peer process where we're rebidding that because we only got one bidder. We don't have to accept that one bid or the 5 bids. But
Potentially make recommendations, put it back out and revise.
we can do that too. It kind of puts us in the driver's seat of to get what we're looking for. If we had 10 dry cleaners and they said, we want to buy the whole thing building, and put another dry cleaner in it, we would say, we don't really want another dry cleaner, we have 10 already.
Who does the marketing of it?
So, DHCD is gonna help us market to, basically they're creating a database, to reach these developers and get them interested in growing Virginia, right? This is like a statewide initiative. But at the same time, this also makes it more feasible, I think, for our local investors and developers to get a piece of the action instead of just waiting for some big corporation to come in. And so you do it a piece at a time, though, where the bank building is such a great example because there are a lot of people in this field of small development that want a historical building. That's kind of a specialty. But they do blank parcels also. They do empty lots too. And so you would put it out. They send you the bid package back with what their plan is. I'm going to have a 10-year lease tenant with a restaurant or with a brewery or, I mean, I'm just saying things, you know, with whatever it is, a flower shop. And I'm going to have mixed use above it. In order for me to invest $500,000 in this building, my return rate is going to be this slow, so I can only pay this much for the project, right?
Can
And
I say something?
sure.
I think that actually go on the record with this. I've said it before, but it's something that just drives me crazy, and this sounds like it could be very helpful, and that is, I hate the fact that we are able to sell a piece of property to somebody and not have a time frame for them to start developing. In other words, they buy like the old bank building, and then they just sit on it. And they
Yeah, it
just,
does
and they
nothing.
wait for the economy to take off, and then they try to flip it or whatever.
So,
So we have to make sure that when we sell this stuff, especially the property that we're negotiating good deals on, that there's a time frame that they're gonna start development, and there should be a final time frame for completion, and of course, we take consider weather and things like that, obviously, but, I mean, we really need to hold the feet to the fire on that.
yeah, I can't agree with you like 1,000%. This is the way to do that. I mean, this is, in fact, when I said, well, we're gonna get a real estate agent and- because we wanna sell this stuff, the whole room like gasped at me and like, and I was shunned. And so they're like, don't do that and do it this way because you won't, what will happen is you will get investors buy them and sit on them until your
Yeah.
economy turns around and nothing will happen. That's what they said in the room and I was like, oh, okay.
I don't know that every one of our parcels necessarily fits this, though.
Maybe that's true.
I'm wondering if we kind of run a parallel course here. We go ahead and get a real, because we did talk, if I'm correct, the RFP is there to represent the town in whatever we may decide that we want to sell. We could hold a specific property, such as the bank building or one of the parking lots on the boardwalk, out and run a parallel path through one of these. Not all of our properties are going to fit the mold of the DHCD development thing, but we could still be moving our process along. So I don't think we want to scrap the RFP for a real estate representation, but we may withdraw specific projects and run through the other process.
I'm not a realtor, but by law, if we advertise a piece of property for sale, we have to have a price. Right.
That's correct.
Okay. If they offer full price and there's not another bidder, we have to accept full price for the property, isn't that correct?
Yes, I think that there's some caveats that we could put on it that possibly
Make sure we
for
do
some
that.
development laws. So again,
Or you mean if we choose a realtor for some of these properties?
yeah,
do it that way?
so I think that there can be some
They're
issues.
general, you're talking about one or another, or they can do both, or jump over one way or the other.
Well, I think it wouldn't be so much necessarily both. I think there's potentially, the bank building, good example. You know, that is a potential to develop, under this process. I hate to pass up, if we've got a penned-up market out there, some penned-up buyers out there just waiting for us to get, representation, I hate to see us necessarily hold back because we could have a good developer who's teed up, who'd be willing to commit to timeframes and so on and so forth. But I like the idea of being able to at least look at this other process as well for specific pieces of property. So I think we continue on with the RFP for the real estate representation, continue with both of our public hearings and resolutions to sell town property, and then concurrently work on getting to know more about this and potentially identifying projects that may fit this mold.
What should be listed and what should be not.
Yeah. We can always pull something
This
back.
program is specifically for downtown infill, small stuff. So when I'm thinking about it, you're right, I'm thinking that the parcel in between the beach shop and the bathrooms, right? That one piece, what a great place for this. It is huge. The bank building, what a great place, but you're right there, I'm really specific about this area, and there is other property that if we wanted to sell, we would get an agent for it, wouldn't be.
Well, it's like the high school, the old high school property. I mean, I really believe we need to target that as some kind of assisted or elderly care.
Yeah,
And we can do that by targeting that through one of these.
an agent, but we could also do
No,
that
through,
for targeted to
I'm
the
talking
bid.
about,
Oh,
no,
yeah.
that's what I'm talking about, it's through
Right.
your thing. No, I say that we, but on the same time, we put it out, we put it out there because somebody's liable to come in and say that's what they wanted to do anyhow, and want to buy it. So, and honestly, that's another piece of property we need to talk about, is the old elementary school, because that's gonna be
Yeah.
hand in hand with that piece.
Well, I want that on that.
I agree with you 100%, absolutely. We'll find someplace to put it, even if we gotta put them in trailers.
Does CD develop a list of properties and then a list of these small developers that, mess them up?
What they are doing is assisting both the developer side and in the town, like the county municipal side. And they are trying to train people who are in local politics to be advocates for attracting this type of development. And then they're also trying to connect and work with and find funding sources. I mean, they're working with banks and stuff for these developers out there to be able to do this stuff. And then they're trying to get us in contact with each other, right? And so, I mean, that's how they
So are they
explain.
a clearinghouse for this, or are they?
They don't really, they're just facilitating it.
Gotcha.
They don't really, but because I've never written one of these bids, and I'm assuming Quinn or Allison and the former she has, I'm gonna rely on DHCD to give us an example and help us write our first one especially, and, make sure we go through that correctly. They also mentioned that part of the bid can include what's called a community benefit agreement. And that's where I think what we're talking about is in they're going to be open in 2 years, or they're going to be benefiting how are they going to be giving back into our community? And so these are all important things that are not going to be monetary benefits necessarily. So when we're talking about this property, where, I'm going to make sure
It is
everybody's
monetary
here. It
benefits
is,
over a longer
It
period of
is.
time, in two different means.
right.
But yes, I see what you're saying.
So, but it also depends on the person, responding to the bid, what their concept is for using the building. If their return rate is slow, they're gonna offer a lower price, but if it's gonna create a really big asset for our community, then maybe we would accept that. So, right.
Well, the good thing about it is you could also consider something like the bank building, where part of it could be used for NGOs, and then the other part could be commercial, or green split.
And maybe something like the chamber building
Correct.
could be sold in that fashion, where they could say, we will continue to house the chamber for a 10-year lease if you sell us the building for this amount.
I think we could do that, yeah.
But I don't know, I love the chamber, so send the chamber up here.
No, I think,
They know which one.
well, let's put, the chamber knows what their offices are in, believe me.
Yeah, well, and it could be possibly it could benefit everybody in that way. So, anyway, just something to explore, but before you relisted for the real estate agent, I wanted to explain this path. But I'm for doing both avenues, I think that's.
And then I think once we do identify, a real estate consultant, that they may be able to enlighten us on some things that we can do on how to put a project out there, maybe as, something without an offer, something that you are taking, there may be different ways to skin the cat.
Sure.
On that. The biggest thing I think we want to do is we want to get it done right, but we also want to get something done. We
Yeah.
don't want to wait years
That's
to go
my
through and
thing.
do a process.
Right.
That's why I'm saying let's run both.
I'm good with that.
I'm gonna leave it today, so,
Okay.
awesome. Lots going, we need to update that, Rob?
Yeah, I started working on a notice to proceed, last night actually. Got a draft note and I anticipate that going out on Friday, but the notice to proceed is pending receipt of the town business license and insurance documents as appropriate.
What timeframe are we looking at?
3 weeks.
Can you get a more definitive timeframe?
I sure will once I talk to them.
Kind of like to make sure that it doesn't fall into one of the bigger events going on at the same time.
Yep.
The only thing between now and the middle of May is the hospital.
We got the hospital thing.
That's April.
Next week, on Thursday. Yeah, and then,
Yeah, and the money has been transferred, as you probably
all
learned.
right. Real estate broker, we just covered that. All right, Palm Beach, banners, I think banners are up, correct, or is this, oh, no, Palm Avenue cleaned up. Banners. So there's been, I'll speak to this, you guys don't mind, obviously everybody has something projected. So this council met on, was it a regular meeting? Last regular meeting, and we had some discussions about Colonial Avenue, and if you're on the council, you hear about Colonial Avenue on a regular basis. If you're on the mayor, you hear about it almost every day. People just aren't happy with it, and I quite frankly think parts of it are a huge eyesore as well, and need some work. And we had discussed some things that needed to be done, and some ideas about Colonial Avenue, some about, the broken windows, the driveways that weren't completed, the unlicensed, untagged vehicles, just the mess of different things everywhere. We thought with the new banners coming in, it would take away from what we're trying to do. So, fortunately and unfortunately, an approach was taken to go out and start enforcing that, which led to some people feeling they were being admonished. And as recent as a couple days ago, have started enforcing the little flags that people put out in the morning that say open or fishing tackle or whatever, and then they put them in the evening. I can tell you as the mayor, and I've talked to several other people, that was not the intent of the council. And I think the Vice Mayor, when I talked, she actually thinks that those are actually allowed in the 2013 sign ordinance.
But we're not under the 2013 ordinance, we're still under the ordinance.
Okay, but
No, 13 was adopted.
what was about?
Yeah, the 2017 amendments were never adopted.
But, okay, but let me, but in the spirit of it all, is, the point I'm trying to make is the council's intention is not to do away with businesses who are trying to become more successful, which is what we want as a council, because that helps fill our coffers, and brings attention to the town. And if you're doing it right, nobody's really going to, we shouldn't be in a position to enforce against people who are trying to do the right things. And if we have to do that, then we really need to at least give them a written notice, a nice handshake, a private talk to, a 30-day grace period to figure out what we do, whether, even if it means that we have to make changes to the sign through the planning commission, ask them to do it expeditiously, then that's what we'll do. But I just want to make it clear to the public that the intent was never, ever to to do away with the fin signs, what do they call it? They have a name for them.
Secondary freestanding banners.
Feather signs, feather signs. There was just never.
Well, I think the one thing, Eddie,
Yeah.
I think the one thing that a lot of people don't understand is nothing's allowed in the right of way. And I think that, you know, there's certain things that we could let possibly go until we, you know, re-looked at the sign ordinance or what have you. But everything's got to be behind the right of way. That is what our biggest issue is, I don't care if it's builders, realtors, grass cutters, whoever, they're not paying attention to the right-of-way issue, and that is our biggest problem.
But, see, I'm confused, and like, where the Peddler's Market had their.
Peddler's Market, there, and I've talked to Lloyd, and they didn't realize, she didn't realize, because actually, when we did that first sign ordinance, I went to Lloyd and said, have you seen this? Because I thought we were gonna, and he's like, yeah, and I mentioned that, he goes, yeah, I remember, he goes, but I didn't know, we didn't have Peddler's Market back then. His issue is that his curb is the edge of the right of way. I said, well, you may need to just drill some holes and put some sleeves in the park, you know, right behind the curb, you know, but that's the problem, is that the sidewalk and the grass strip between their, the parking lot there and the road is the right of way. And that's where we run into problems. And it's not just signs and stuff, I think it's cars also. Cars parked in the right of way, whether it's overflow from one of the mechanics facilities. We've got cars parking all over sidewalks in town that are screwing up sidewalks and keeping so people can't pass. But it's an eyesore. I mean, when you can go down and you can see a nice straight line behind, and everything's behind the right of way, which is the intent, it makes a difference. And I mean, riding down it today, it made a difference, you know.
Yeah, it looks a lot better.
You can see a difference, and that's what we were trying to do with the initial, before we got some of the other things done.
When
But
I look at the sign ordinance, I think it is 3 feet from the right of way, is the sign ordinance.
it's got to be 3 feet behind the right of way, so that's even better.
But, I know, but don't quote
Wouldn't
me on
have
that. Just
Well,
go by the actual
I'm
ordinance.
meeting with Pam on Monday or Tuesday, and a private business owner in town, and we're gonna sit down and just read through the sign ordinance and just kind of take the temperature on some issues.
I know the chamber reached out to me and asked if they could volunteer a member for the sign ordinance rewrite with the commissioner. I forwarded that email to Allison, so.
Well, we're not, I think right now what we're looking at is
Thursday.
what's active as compared to the 2017, to get that confirmed
Yeah.
first.
The
And
one-
then any potential changes. So it's a two-step process here, and
The one adopted in 2013 that is on the town website was adopted by town council. So that is the
Right.
one that is currently in
yeah,
effect.
and that was
The
something that was
2017 rewrite.
extensive input. It took them 2.5 years to write the thing.
Yeah.
A lot of business people were involved, the chamber was involved, a lot of people were involved, and everybody's forgotten about it, I think. So, the idea is to look at that as compared to the rewrite, see if we can push the rewrite through with some, you know, as is, or with some minor changes, and then have a new basis by which to look at something else if we need to. That's kind of where we're at.
The sign ordinance is no easy task, I'm just gonna say to the public, when they say, well, we should just fix this.
Well, that's
It's
it.
like 6 months from now, maybe.
Yeah, I just wish,
That's the way, people need to understand that, because it seems like an easy thing to fix, and it's not. It's not.
I just wish everybody on social media would read the town ordinances before they just start jumping to conclusions.
Yeah, I just, again, you know, I just want to be clear to our businesses. We love our businesses. We can't live in this town without these businesses. And we support our businesses. And every person in this council supports our businesses on a regular basis. But I see them all shopping at the same places I do. And it's never been our intent, and nor will it be our intent. We're only going to try to do the right things that are good for collective 3,600 residents that live here and the businesses, and try to keep everybody living in some type of harmony and safely, by the way. So, Santa Maria drainage issue, I think we'll go over that, okay. Town council priority list and grant opportunities.
I don't know, I think Kathy's just keeping this on so that we don't forget that we did it.
Exactly.
One thought, I asked you the other day, if we had anything updated or new on that. I mean, should we possibly be, I thought the intent was to kind of look at half a dozen items and kind of process them or put attention on them or keep attention on them by keeping them on the agenda.
We actually should have
The
you
attach-
mentioned having the priority list in the book.
That's what I thought, and that's what I
It would be
asked.
good to have an update on that.
Yeah,
Can we do that at the next work session?
Yeah.
Have the regular
Just
meeting at the next?
keep it in there, you know.
Kathy, at the next work session, put the priority list that we developed in there, and then moving forward, we'll have it, I'd like to have it, if we could, in each meeting, each work for each meeting, so we can refer back to them.
Very good.
Thank you so much. All right. Citizen input, Mr. Kennedy?
Steve Kennedy, 220 Boundary Street. Mr. Mayor, every place I've ever lived, and it's been numerous locations, through 34 years of Dominion Power, I moved quite a bit. Everywhere I lived, and I moved in, I had 30 days to register my vehicle. And I know this is a hard thing to do, and what I'm going to ask, and I don't know how it can be done. But being retired, I got a lot of time on my hands. And I see a lot of things going, and you see the repeated cars over and over and over without a state tax that obviously have not updated their Virginia state tag. And if that's the case, they haven't done it here in the town of Palm Beach either. And it could be for a lack of education, they don't know. And I don't know how you would do this, or how you would enforce this, because I think this issue's been brought up before.
Multiple times.
Multiple times.
Multiple times.
And now we have multiple cars.
Yep.
If I've got to pay my personal property tax, I think everybody in this town should stand up and do the honorable thing and do the same thing.
Yeah, I think if you want to.
I don't know, maybe I can defer to the chief and maybe his people do surveying through town as they're doing their patrolling. I don't know where they see these things. Go ahead.
I was just going to say, the previous chief, we had this discussion several times, and publicly and privately, and basically there's some effort to give military people relief over in town, is that correct? I mean, I think that's something we don't have, the state does that, I believe. But for the most part, I think it's, we have a lot of Maryland tax in town.
Absolutely.
And I think part of that is because Maryland never registered once, I believe, is that correct? So when the bid was purchased, and when it's pre-purchased, it has to be registered again. So I think that's part of our problem. I would support wholeheartedly a nice little letter, form letter, given to people that we see them park there on a regular basis and say, you're living in town of Palm Beach, we appreciate you to come up and register your car in town of Palm Beach.
I moved to Roanoke Rapids, North Carolina in 1988, and within 10 days, I had a policeman knock on my front door. And he said, just a courtesy call. And Roanoke Rapids was a small city. It was comparatively Fredericksburg size, something like that. But he just knocked on the door, says a courtesy call to let you know that you have 30 days to register your vehicle. And I don't know how you do that, or how you would come, what avenue you would go down and do that. Maybe working with real estate agents to have them, when they rent a home, or somebody purchases a home here in town from out of state, to give them a card, let them know that. If they apply for water service. I don't know how you do it. Because
We
there's a
can
lot
send a
of,
welcome wagon and it can be a police.
yeah, I think you can do that.
Yeah, well, one of the things we talked about was putting that kind of information in the quarterly order bills, since we can now mail those out rather than a little card. And that's functional, but then it doesn't always hit home as well.
It doesn't work because then you have rentals that's in the owner's
Exactly.
name, it's not the tenant's name. And I think that's some of the issue there, it's because of more rentals than it is home buyers. Home buyers typically get the information because they have to do these things. Yeah, you have to connect your services and all that, and so it's pretty obvious when you got a water bill, but you're not getting any,
Yeah.
they're not walking. You know, they got a vehicle, so why don't we have
You
both?
know, and I mean, the other thing is we reduced the personal property tax rate with the idea that we would incentivize others to register their cars in town, and that backfired on us. And what's happening now is that the taxpayers are paying even more so because of that.
We base the police department budget off of the car tax, so that's why.
Well, anyway,
Just look into this and get back to the council.
Let's go there with
When you
that.
can.
appreciate you
Maybe
listening.
check with some of the other local jurisdictions, find out how they handle it.
Yeah, like Steve said, it might be a good idea too, something we can put on the website, just put it out there.
You know,
As a, not a,
yeah.
You know, when they sign, I mean, they pay the water and sewer, and they pay the taxes to us, so there's opportunities to, when they open their accounts and so on and so forth, to give that kind of.
I appreciate you listening.
Yeah, thanks.
Thank you.
Some of the, and just because, you know, I rental property, I think water and sewer bills because I'm the one that's responsible for them. I don't have anybody that has out-of-state tags, but that might fall on that landowner to say, look, you've got a lease for 30 days, so, I mean, for a year, with the I don't even.
I second that motion, Bill. Thank you.
You don't have to get,
Put it on the, put it on
but
the.
that's, they'll people will say that, you know, because they don't pay the water and sewer bills, so, you know, they won't see,
I think just a drive-by, and just jot down an address, and if you see it on a regular basis, then you,
Or it's the
develop a
same
form letter
thing with
that
the
you
business
just
licenses.
you
I
just give it
mean,
right to the, and it's almost it's a courtesy, just let you know that you're supposed to, in 30 days, whatever, what does the town code say? How many days do you have?
Well,
State
it's actually
code.
state of Virginia.
It's
Yeah,
state,
state of Virginia.
it's 30 days.
Is it 30? Okay, well, let's get,
And I-
maybe get a copy of that and just hand it to them, and see how it works, and if we get,
I mean, you could
yeah, you get to meet people.
Well, you know, this is, and this is.
They really want to talk to you.
This is very
Yeah.
similar to the business license issue as well, which we've not come up with a process on either of policing that. And these are all little pieces of revenue. As one individual account, they don't add up to a huge amount, but when you add all 3 or 4 things, when you got pier leases, you got gross receipt taxes, you got car registration, you got golf cart, all of it adds up. And, you know, we've got a lot of people that are doing it and paying it, and
It's
then.
not fair to the rest of the
Well,
citizens
that's
that
it.
are paying.
But again, our problem is, we've got to come up with, and I sound like a broken record on this stuff, how to enforce our ordinances. And that's where, why is everybody upset about the sign ordinance? Because we finally tried to enforce something that we approved and put in place in 2013 and had never enforced it since. That's why everybody's upset, okay? That's what our problem is.
Yeah, that, I think, we went after the wrong message to say, after the wrong things, I get it.
But you think about it though, if we'd have been enforcing that since 2013, nobody was using that kind of flag back then anyhow. You know, we need to address things when they come up and not let them turn into the norm and then decide, okay, now we're gonna enforce our ordinance.
You can't just have a good idea and then all of a sudden let it go because it was a great idea.
Exactly.
We don't want to.
We've got to, after this budget thing is over, we've got to really work on this stuff.
Walter, Mr. Kern?
I think it's time to give the town a history lesson. The history lesson has to do with the cherry trees. The cherry trees came from Japan that were given to Washington. The mayor of Colonial Beach, Grover, was in charge of planting those trees in Washington. He also lived in Colonial Beach. He was able to get 16 of those trees delivered to Colonial Beach and had them planted at Castlewood Beach. It would have been, by 1980, they were gone. Now, the town has opened up Eleanor Trailer Park as a park. My family has decided, and we contacted Lowe's in Fredericksburg on the purchase of the cherry trees that will bloom, and they cost $27. We are, as a family, we are prepared to purchase 3 trees to put down at Eleanor Trailer Park, and there are other members in this town that will follow suit as well. The mayor of the town at that time was Carson Bader, and his brother was Tinker Carson Bader as well. And what had happened to those trees, it is a mystery. But when they were in bloom, families would go down there and take pictures of family pictures of their families as well. And it's a shame that, you know, whatever happened, it happened. But they are gone, and we are prepared. My family is prepared to bring those trees back as well.
Thank you.
Thank you.
George Washington lived nearby here too.
He
George Washington,
chopped down cherry trees.
he chopped down all the cherry trees. Big point, Walter. Eric?
Eric Nelson, 1321 Lossing. First, I want to follow up on the conversation about Eleanor Park. I want to thank the Public Works Department for getting the signs down so quickly. I think it's great that they're down before the Osprey Festival. There are going to be a lot of people traveling around town, and it's going to be good to have that space available. And there have been people using it, not myself because I was on vacation, following the mayor on his vacation. Both of us were in tropical places. But anyway, I just wanted to say that wearing my Friends of Eleanor Park hat on, that we're absolutely ready to start working to make sure that that park is turned into the best kind of facility that all of us can be proud of. And I just, want to reiterate that as much as strongly as I can. Also, I want to comment about the radio station. I think I mentioned at the last meeting that's happening, and that's gotten a lot of momentum. If you've been following it on Nextdoor, there's a lot of interest in doing that. So, and that's being sort of organized under the umbrella of the foundation. So that's one of the, I think, really great new projects that are happening at the beach. I also want to comment on Ryan Gandy. I did have a long conversation with him, and we saw eye to eye on lots and lots of things, and I am ready and willing and able to give him as much help and support as I possibly can, so I'm looking forward to working with him more closely. And then just one question I had. I was intrigued by Ms. Schick's explanation of that creative way of marketing the town properties. And I think it's great to try to do that. I was sort of curious though, what if you didn't have any takers? If you didn't have anybody submitting a proposal, and yet you did have a regular sort of entity out there who wanted to purchase a building, how would you pursue that, or how would the process evolve in that circumstance? And I don't know if you want to answer me now, or it doesn't really matter. I'm just
going to tell you, I would ask the UCD how to respond to that before, because I'm not sure, and I'm really sort of taking their guidance on this. I would assume we would contact anybody interested in the building to indeed do the bid process. Would be the first way to encourage it.
Oh, I see. So if there is like a regular individual or whatever who's interested in the building, to get them to pursue it through this other process. That's all.
Stay right
Yeah.
there. Mr. Mayor, isn't there a process about taking unsolicited bids? That you move forward, anybody can make an offer on any piece of property that the town owns. And I think through the unsolicited bids process, then you would put that out for public notification. We have had this offer on this property, any other interested parties would henceforth bring an offer if they so wish. And that's the process I think is followed.
Well, that we can do, but I think what we're trying to do is to get something to follow what we'd like to see happen. So, you know, we're still, one way or another, we've got to create what it is we want. I don't know if the planning commission does that or the planner does or what, but the end result or the picture or whatever that we want to see happen to maybe a specific parcel or two in town has still got to be created and have that available. So if, you know, if somebody did want to make an offer, we could give them that document, say we'd like it to be based on this. So we still have to create that, but I think the idea is to have both or three options available. Yeah, unsolicited bids is always available. If we've got property that we're putting out there, you know, with prices through a realtor or what have you, and then this third process. So all of the options, I think, are available, and we can change them based on resolution at any time.
I think the caution in selling property down there has been, if we sell it, then we don't know what's going to happen next. And we've been told that we're not going to have any assurances, and we can't, but this would change that. So we would want them to encourage them to participate this way.
When we sold the old police station, that was going to be, is to be a Italian restaurant. The two gentlemen that purchased it, they understood that the council was giving them a very fair opportunity.
And they are
purchase
working
it.
toward
Yeah,
that.
but I'm just saying, and
Right.
that's the kind of relationship that I would like to see,
Right.
but with some time constraints on it to make sure that it actually comes to fruition and we actually end up with what we were hoping at some level to see. Part two, what I was going to ask you was, could you forward me stuff about the radio station? Because I don't do next door or Blue News or anything.
Actually, I was bringing this up in part to tell you, Mr. Mayor, that the guy, Ted Tate, who is coordinating it, has been trying to reach you to talk to you about the subject. So I think you have an email from him.
Okay.
And in part, one of the things that he wants to talk to you about, when the tower for this radio station is over by Wilkerson's, and when the tower was first put in place, according to what I've learned, there was some space that was allocated for the town to use. That's not the space that's not the piece that's currently being used for the broadcasting of this radio, which I think I mentioned before is actually a company in Fredericksburg that's using it to broadcast here in Colonial Beach. I don't completely understand how that evolved, but in any event, this radio station, the one that we're now creating, we'd like to use the space that the town is been given for free, which has never been used for anything. So that's what Ted is going to send you an email about. So if you could look through your emails, and you can ask him any questions, he can give you these. There's a lot of information, there's a lot of excitement, a lot of people who are jumping up and down, getting really excited.
Okay, very good. Is he in relation to the Tates that we're heard of, you know?
In relation to the Tates who were, no.
That we're heard of?
No.
Which Tate?
So Ted and his husband, they live on, they have a weekend place here at the corner of Madison and Lawson. You've probably seen the
Okay.
rainbow flag out there.
Okay.
That's there.
Yeah. Okay, awesome, very good. Very good, thank you.
Thank you.
One, you know, and on the, you know, similar like to the Italian restaurant thing, in order for us to entice adjacent buyers for the other properties, they want to know what's happening and what the timeframes are for previously sold properties. So, yeah, all the more reason.
Yeah, very good. Like, I don't know if you spent time in Fall River, Main Street there. People in the Copperfish, 3 restaurants in a row and a little feed vehicle above it. Airbnb or a suite up there. Yeah, the place is awesome. And they did the same thing. So, anyway. Okay, well, without further ado, is there any reason for us to go into a closed meeting? Good. Is there a motion to go?
Actually, I was going to ask you for
Which, do you want to say?
I don't know.
I don't know. Okay. Is there a motion to adjourn? Second.